We have to change up with what we're given. For those of you who are visiting with us today, thank you. Thank you for coming. If you were invited by someone, that means that you were loved. Someone actually cares about you and wanted you to come and be a part of it. Now, this is not our norm. I normally don't preach in a Dan Morgan jersey on Sunday mornings. I was laughing, sharing with Jay and Ann a few minutes ago. I played football all my life and loved it. That was one of my favorite sports. And when you're a football player, by the end of your season, you want your jersey to be ripped up and scarred up and soiled, because at the end of the season, if your jersey looks like it did at the beginning of the season, that means that you didn't play much. And so I had this Dan Morgan jersey from the Carolina Panthers. Matt and I went to Charlotte. Man, golly, when Matt was about this tall, and I picked this jersey up, and I was looking at it, and it was stained. So I just want to talk about the elephant in the room. If you're saying, man, the preacher's in there wearing a stained jersey. I consider a stained jersey a badge of honor. But unfortunately, I started looking at this, and I think that's food stains. So I don't know if old Dan got to play much or not. But anyway, we normally, if you're a guest, we normally don't dress this casual, but we love to have fun. And so what we wanted to do was just to tell everybody, hey, on this particular day, just wear your favorite team apparel. That's why you see some that's wearing Virginia Tech. Garth wearing that Carolina blue. That is something the elders will meet with him after church on that one. We'll talk about that. But we want to just capture the energy that's around today for this football game. And again, whether you're protesting the NFL or not, the reality is a lot of people are going to be excited about watching that game tonight, or maybe just getting together. I found that most of the time, the fellowship that's together in that living room is a lot greater than the game that's on that TV. And that's what excites a lot of people, just the aspect of getting together and eating food and laughing and having fun. Why do we reserve that for a sporting event or some awards program? As Christians, we should have that kind of excitement every Lord's Day. When we come together, this should be a time of fellowship. So I felt that in this room this morning, that you guys were actually glad to be able to come together in fellowship. So I appreciate that so very much. Yesterday evening, as we were saying, we had some of our brothers and sisters share their stories with us, their testimony of what God has done in their life. And I was talking to Dan and Sandy this morning and said, I'd like to just kind of summarize what each one of them said in a sentence. And we heard from several. Joel Hollinsworth. I don't know if Joel is here today, but Joel, at a very young age, he lost one of his eyes. He lost the sight in one of his eyes from an accident that he had. And he had open heart surgery a couple of years ago, and the surgery on his heart went well, but a few weeks after that, he had a blood clot that went to the nerve in his remaining good eye, and he lost his sight. And when you visit with Joel is an awesome man of God. He is he's such a great guy. But it broke my heart when he sat down at that table and he said, I want to see my grandkids again. He said that was a hard moment to not be able to see his family that he loved. But last night, I can summarize what he said in one line. He said, I know I will see again. And man, that faith in God is just so powerful. And we had Leanne Seeley. Those of you who know Leanne, boy, she's just a little spitfire, just a ball of energy. And she got up and shared her story. But one sentence that she said over and over again throughout her testimony just stuck with me. There is power in the name of Jesus. And man, I tell you what, she's not just saying it, she's living it. She believes it. And so we were just overwhelmed by hearing her story. And then Pam Harrison. I don't know if Pam is with us today, but all of you who are part of the Stone family know that Pam's husband, Tim, had Lou Gehrig's disease. And he fought that battle 2 years and 2 months. The doctors, when he found out he had it, gave him about a year. And, you know, we watched Tim grow exponentially in his walk with the Lord through the progression of this disease. But Pam said something that was just so powerful. She says, as she was, her and Tim was talking, she said it was just like they were living out that footprints in the sand poem. And this is what she said: I know that there were only one set of footprints in the sand because Jesus had carried us. Man, they saw his faithfulness. They lived through that. And she was sharing that hope with us. And then Cheryl Merriman sharing the trials that her and Tim's daughter went through with the adoption process and all the roller coaster ride of ups and downs with that. She made a statement: we knew it had to be God. You see, all of these shared in their hope in who God was. He was not just someone that they had heard about. He was someone that they knew. But more importantly than that, they knew that He knew them. And He had promised them that He was going to be with them through the trials. And it brings me back to Psalm 95. Let's continue reading if you'd like to. Psalm 95, starting with verse 6. Oh, come let us worship and bow down. The psalmist is just captivating the energy in the assembly when they come to worship the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, at that tabernacle. If during the Old Testament period of the portable tabernacle moving around, or the temple, wherever it was that they went to worship, they were capturing that energy. Oh, come. Let us bow down and worship. Let us kneel before the Lord, our Maker. Man, that is important to know where we come from, who created us. So many times in this life we'll be discouraged. We'll have to wonder, why did you let that happen, Lord? But He is the Maker. He knows what is going to make us the best in the end. We get very wrapped up in our own little world, and we don't like any inconvenience. I know I don't. I'm a very impatient person. I don't like it when my plans don't work out. Many of you are the same way. But we have to stop and think, it is He who is in control. It was He who is fashioning all things to make us the people He wants us to be. And we grow more from the trials than we do the good times, don't we? I mean, seriously, when you think back on your life and the times that you experienced the most growth in your walk with the Lord, it wasn't when everything was going great. It wasn't when you had good health. It wasn't when you had plenty of money in the bank. It wasn't when your relationships were going great. The times of greatest growth came when things were tough. You didn't see it at the time. But now that you've come full circle, you can look back and say, that's when I really knew who my Maker was. So the psalmist says, come, let us worship, let us bow down, let us kneel before the Lord our Maker, for He is our God. He is our God. Ours, not mine. You don't come to worship Tim's God. I'm not just painting you a picture of someone that's exclusive. No, He is inclusive. He is ours. For whosoever would turn to Him and be obedient to Him, He is our God. Now, I love that part. That is beautiful. You think about that little campfire that was sit in the setting of Palestine, maybe just on a little flat place in the valley floor, and Jesus and his disciples are there just warming up beside the fire, and that old Pharisee Nicodemus comes to him just to check out who Jesus is. He's heard the reports from the other Pharisees. He has heard how Jesus was this great teacher who was attracting crowds, but boy, his teaching was not the same as the Pharisees. But Nicodemus, he didn't want to just cast blame to him. He wanted to hear him out and to find out what Jesus really stood for. So he's around that campfire with Jesus that night, and Jesus looks at him and says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whosoever will believe in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved." Nicodemus said, "That's true." He didn't understand everything at that time, but God in the flesh was talking to him. And he knew that God wanted a relationship for whoever. It wasn't limited just to the Jews or to the religious leaders. It was to whosoever. Come, let us bow down and worship. He is our God, and we are the people of his pasture and the sheep of his hand. You think about that. We belong to him. And if we belong to him, he's going to take care of us. If we are his, he's not going to turn loose of us. There is nothing that's going to pry us away from his loving grasp. Now, we do know that we can turn loose of him, that we can reject him, we can turn and walk away from him. The same free will that Adam and Eve had, we have today. But I can't imagine how you could taste and see that the Lord is good and then want to turn away from him. But it happens. The first part of that psalm just talks about how we need to come together and worship, because he is worthy of our praise. He is worthy of our admiration. He is worthy of every good thing that we can lavish upon him. And he wants us to be here. But there comes a warning towards the end of that 95th psalm. And in closing, I'd like to just read a little bit of that. Today, if you will hear his voice, do not harden your hearts as in the rebellion. Because it says, as in the day of the trial in the wilderness, when your fathers tested me, they tried me, though they saw my work. God is reminding the people that they saw the goodness of God. They saw him leading them out of the slavery in Egypt. They saw him work as he parted the Red Sea and they walked through on dry ground. They saw when they were thirsty that the rock gave them water to drink. When they were hungry, the quail would come into the camp. The manna would be appearing in the morning so that they would have substance to eat. They saw the work, but when his voice hearkened them to go into the promised land, they gave in to fear. They gave in to fear, and that fear became greater than God to them. They hardened their hearts to him. And look at what he says in verse 10. For 40 years I was grieved with that generation. For 40 years he made them wander around in the desert wilderness area until that entire adult, non-believing, weak-minded generation died off and a new generation came to follow him. And he said, it is a people who go astray in their hearts, and they do not know my ways. So I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter my rest. So the answer for us today is we should not harden our hearts when it comes to following Him. So this morning, even though we may be very, very small in number, there may be someone here who came just for this moment to say, I do not want to harden my heart. I have heard His call. He has worked in my life, and I am ready to surrender to Him. It may be 34 degrees outside, but that baptismal pool is a nice warm 80. And you can give your life to the Lord. You can be buried with Him in Christian baptism, raising to newness of life, walking in that newness of life with hope. It's available. Jesus died to give it to you. Will you live for Him? I hope that we all are. I believe. I can't help but think, just because your willingness to come and be here today, you're wanting to serve Him. But if you want to go deeper, now's the time. If you've never accepted Him, today could be the day of salvation for you. Whatever decision that you have to make, would you make that as we stand and sing together?